Lunch Without Lunch, everybody. If this is your first time here, if you're newer to the community, please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourselves. The snow making the longer nights brighter, right? It's funny how it feels like midnight at like 5 p.m. now. I will get there. Don't worry, I will get there. No, I just can't seem to access our slides. Very odd. Okay, so if you're new to Rainforest, big welcome. My name is Bridget Legault. I'm the community manager here with Rainforest in Calgary. My counterpart, the community storyteller Amber Rowden, is actually down in Sunnyvale at the Plug and Play Summit with the PR work she does. So that's super exciting. She won't be able to join us today. We also have a steering committee up in Edmonton who manage and orchestrate community events and activities up in Edmonton. I don't see any of them here right now, but if you're in the Edmonton area, you can certainly connect with them and see how you can become involved in the Rainforest movement up in the Edmonton area. So Lunch Without Lunch is our way of coming together as a community every week. It's a nice, safe space for us all to connect, share what we're working on, look for help from others, and learn from some of the founders, particularly in our ecosystem in Calgary, and hear their stories. And I hope to inspire more stories of startup founders, as well as community builders and tech workers throughout Calgary and the province. And so a big warm welcome to you. If you've even been around the community, feel free to throw who you are in the chat, maybe your LinkedIn profile, so people can connect with you afterwards. So I'm totally winging it here because I can't get my slides up. But a little more context for what the Rainforest Alberta movement is. We are based on this analogy that was born back in 2012 with this book, The Rainforest, Building the Next Silicon Valley. We're not trying to be Silicon Valley by any means, but we are trying to feed off of this analogy and framework that actual tech sector is like an actual rainforest, in that it needs to be wild and woolly and diverse and collaborative, and we need keystones in place, like those keystone species in place, in order for this broader ecosystem to thrive and to grow. And so pretty deep scientific analogy if you ever want to check that out. The study of ecosystems has certainly evolved since 2012. And there was supposed to be a new book coming out from one of the co-authors of this, but I haven't seen it yet. So look forward to that. But there's lots of ecosystem literature out there now, if you're curious. We have a bit of a library between Amber and I. I'd be happy to share our books with you. Any other piece I can bring to the table here? A little bit of like context about what Rainforest Alberta has been up to. Innovation Week in Calgary just wound down back, was it last week? Feels like an eternity ago, and it felt like an eternity. There was so much going on, so much activity in Calgary. It was really great to see. We held an awesome event that welcomed over 125 newcomers to the ecosystem at our Discover Tech event. I see Susanna here. She was instrumental in pulling that off. It was really exciting and fun. You can check out some of the footage on our social media channels. So we're often known as this safe space or this rainforest canopy for people to come and join the tech sector, or just be curious about what's going on in tech. And so we wanted to really embrace that in that event and create a safe space for people to come and explore careers in tech and entrepreneurship. So we had partners involved in that, which was fantastic. We are always promoting our social contract. So this is kind of the foundation of our movement. We're a non-entity, we're just a movement, a community of people who come together. The contract is 10 values that we agreed to live, work, and play by. And the idea is to keep each other accountable to these values. So once you've signed the social contract, it's not only our job to behave in these ways, which are really just all about being kind and paying it forward and giving back to the community and being curious in our approach with others, but it's also about keeping each other accountable to the social contract. And so it's meant to be used as a tool that you can say to someone, you know, you're not acting in this way, and that's not how we build a thriving ecosystem. So feel free to use it in that way. Stories I've heard from kind of the OGs of the rainforest are that they used to print it out on their desk, and they would call the elephant out in the room or call the bad behavior out in the room and say, you know what, we've all agreed to build an ecosystem that is collaborative, that is diverse and inclusive, and is based upon trust. And we can't build trust without having these honest conversations. And that's what we aim to promote and do. And so there's the social contract in the chat. If you haven't signed it, please feel free to sign it. We've had some feedback lately from younger generations saying that the idea of a contract feels like really, maybe a little more intense or a little more committal than it should. And so maybe we'll start exploring conversations about what it would look like to maybe have some sort of mantra or manifesto. These are conversations Amber and I are having in the background with various leaders in the ecosystem. So we'll see where that takes us. But a cool hashtag that we could just plaster everywhere, I think that'd be fun. If you have other ideas or you want to explore some of those thoughts with us, we're always open to those conversations and including community members in curating some of those kind of events and pieces with us, just as we did with Susanna and others for the Discover the Tech event. So I'm going to leave it at that as far as context for what is Rainforest, why are we here today? We're here to connect, we're here to learn and be inspired by founders in our ecosystem. And so we have Shannon here from WaitWell today, and I think just going to turn it over to you, Shannon, if you're okay with that. We'll hear about the journey, the path of creating WaitWell. And after that, there will be time to ask questions, but feel free to throw your hand up or throw questions in the chat. I can help Shannon field those if needed, or just take them away. And at the end of, or closer to the end of the hour, we'll find some time to connect in smaller breakout rooms. So I urge you now to get your extroversion out, is that a word? Get your connecting chops out, because it really and truly is the magic of this hour, and the rainforest is finding connection in conversations with each other, and the opportunities and the resources and support and help you can get from those conversations is always endless. We hear stories about it all the time. We wish we could measure it, but it's truly just kind of this bigger thing that we can't. But so many great things come out of connections in this room, this virtual room. And then at the very end of the hour, we will talk about community announcements. So anything you want to share that you're working on at the end, kind of 12 to 1 is when we'll do that. So just to give everyone the lay of the land, and I'll throw it over to Shannon to share her story. Really excited for this. It's been too long. It took us too long to get here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I was really thrilled when you asked me if I would join today. I did attend some of the sessions earlier on when we were in an earlier stage, and really appreciate the work that Rainforest Alberta and all the other ecosystem partners are doing to support the growth of this sector in Alberta. Yeah, I have some slides to share. So is it okay if I share my screen, Bridget?
Yes, absolutely. Do you have that capability? Okay, great. Awesome.
Can everybody see that? Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, WaitWell, what it is today is we call it a customer flow solution to optimize operations at busy locations. And the reason I say that we call this today is that we are, I think today, quite different than where we started out. And so what I kind of wanted to focus on today is sort of the journey from why we started in the first place and what sort of events shaped the evolution of WaitWell and how we responded to those, and some of the things that I think we did well, and some of the things that I maybe would have done differently, some of the lessons that I've had along the road. And please feel free to jump in, if Bridget, if you wouldn't mind helping with facilitating, because I can't always see if there's somebody with their hands up. I think it's a little easier on Zoom than on Meets. But so yeah, customer flow, what does that really mean? It's kind of a new segment. Like if you go to G2 or Capterra, Software Advice, GetApp, you won't really see a customer flow category. You'll see things like waitlist category, appointment scheduling category, perhaps a queue management category. But customer flow is kind of a new segment that we and some of our competitors are starting to carve out. And the reason that we call it customer flow is that if you work in a busy service environment, like in, for example, in a bank, in a motor vehicle office, in a registrar's office at a university, there are days where there are too many customers, too many people that need service, not enough service staff. And you've all been in that situation where you've been in the bank and there's a million people waiting for service and there's two poor clerks on the counter. And then there's other days where the two poor clerks are bored silly because there's nobody coming in asking for service. And neither of those situations are really ideal. What we like to see is that sort of steady movement where people are being directed to the right person, to the right place at just the right time. They're not waiting too long. They're being given all the information they need before they arrive for service. So everything just feels kind of like, I like to think of it kind of like a beehive. You know, if you watch a beehive, you don't see bees lining up to get in the hive, but they're always coming and going. And that's kind of the sort of environment that we like to create through our software. So, but to back it up, so this is where we are today, but to back it up, where we started is this. I'm actually, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I never, ever, ever had any intention of owning or operating a business. It wasn't interesting to me. I went into teaching right out of university. I taught for over 15 years, most of it at Bow Valley College. Never had any interest in running a business. I thought business was for other people. It was all about money. Wasn't at all interesting to me. I got dragged into this by my partner, who basically decided to buy a registry and then decided that it would make a lot of sense if I ran it for us. Then my first day on the job, it was actually not called East Calgary Registry. It was called Registries Plus, and it was on the corner of Memorial and 52nd Street in Northeast Calgary. It's about 10 blocks east of Marble Mall, if anybody knows the area. And it was super chaotic. So what they had is one of these, you can see on the screen, the ticket pulling system. So people would walk in and they'd pull a ticket. And then there was a number on the wall that would, the clerks all had a little button that they could press when they were ready for a new customer. And then the screen would read the number of who was being served. But it was really, really chaotic. And then when people were done with their turn, they would just throw the papers on the floor. So then when other customers walked in, rather than grabbing a larger number from the ticket dispenser, they would try to pick one up off the floor and then claim that their number had been missed, so that they could get served quickly. So it was really a mess. It didn't give the clerks any information about what the person was going to be there for, what kind of service they were going to need. So there was no way to direct them to the best staff member able to help them. All it really did was to get rid of the physical lineups. So when we moved and we gave the registry a new name, we moved to a brand new location in November of 2019. And we said, you know what, let's get rid of this ticketing system because it's kind of outdated. I think a lineup would probably just be faster and easier. And so we moved to that. And for the first couple of months, it actually worked pretty well. We weren't extraordinarily busy. The lineup moved fairly quickly. We had some chairs along the wall in case people wanted to sit while they were waiting. Unfortunately, about 3 months after we moved into this location, COVID hit. And for the first couple months of COVID, obviously we were only allowed to have a few people in the office at a time. Again, it wasn't a huge problem because we weren't all that busy. Most people were kind of staying home and leaving non-essential service visits for, when the lockdowns ended and everything. And so we kind of made do until about May. And May of 2020, the restrictions had lifted. People were getting a little bit more comfortable with going out. By that time, people had masks. And we were absolutely slammed. Everybody wanted to get a driver's license. Everybody wanted to get on the road, get the things done that they hadn't done. And so what ended up happening is that you can see the storefront here. We had a lineup all along that sidewalk and then all along in front of the 2 or 3 stores beside us. And the 2 or 3 stores beside us were complaining, and they were saying, you're taking up all the room on the sidewalk. Customers were complaining that we weren't doing the best job that we could of keeping everybody safe, that the crowding was a really terrible customer experience. My staff were really stressed out. I had a really hard time keeping people during that time. They kept quitting because it was really stressful to work in that environment. And so I had this idea because I was watching people standing in line and they were all looking at their phones. And I said, if only there was a way that I could just send them a text when it was their turn, and then they could go sit in their cars and they would get a text when it was their turn. And then we could just have 3 or 4 people inside waiting at a time. And so I talked to my partner, my husband and business partner, and I said, what if we built a system where people would text in their name to a number, and then they would get a text back letting them know what their position in line and estimated wait time was. And then when it was almost their turn, they would get another text saying, hey, you should make your way inside. And he said, well, doesn't that already exist? So we did some research. We looked at the competition, and I just found that although those systems existed, they were a bit more complicated. They usually involved people having to download an app onto their phone, which I thought would be a barrier. People wouldn't want to do that. And so I just kept thinking about it more and more over the next couple months. And I decided, I think this is a really good idea. And so he asked me the question, well, what makes your idea different than what's already out there? So this is back in June of 2020, May or June of 2020. And I had two answers for him. I actually had to think about this for a long time, because he said, I'm not doing this with you unless you write a business plan, and you have to, the crux of the business plan is that your idea has to be different than what's already out there. And so I came up with two ideas. The first is, well, this is going to be made in Canada. So therefore, the data privacy, data security will be less of an issue, because people will be more comfortable with working with a Canadian software company. And then my other idea was, well, it's going to be simple. It's going to be text-based. Nobody's going to have to download an app. We're not going to do anything fancy. We're not going to have any complex workflows or analytics reports, anything like that. It's just going to be very simple, based on SMS texting. So that was my idea back in 2020. And he said, okay, fine, I guess that's good enough. And so we worked together, and he actually wrote out the product requirements and found us a business partner who's a software developer that he'd worked with in previous roles that he had at software companies in Alberta. And he created, I should say, a very, very early version of WaitWell. And we started testing it in August of 2020 at the registry. We just had people text in their name. They got a text back. It went really, really well. We were really lucky initially, because we benefited from what we call the network effect. So basically, there were people who came in as customers, used it, and happened to know somebody who had a similar business that had a similar need, and shared that with. So we actually had our very first customer was the registry at South Trail Crossing in South Calgary, and his accountant's wife used it at our registry and told her husband about it, who told the owner of South Trail Crossing. And Dennis called me and said, hey, I heard you've got this solution. What are you using? And can you connect me with them? And I said, well, actually, that's us. And we don't even have a website yet. We didn't even have a way of taking a credit card payment. But he was game. And so he started trying it. And we just started using that network. We used our network of Alberta registry agents, and I think we had about a dozen registry agents early on. I think we got up to about 20 in the first year. And things were kind of swimming along. It was just the three of us. It was still a side gig for all of us. We all still had full-time jobs. And then the next sort of big milestone that happened was the University of Manitoba called. And they said, by this time we kind of had a sort of a crude website up. And they said, there's an RFP coming. We just want to let you know about it. And so, we decided to participate in the RFP. And a few months later, we found out that we won that deal. That was in the spring of 2021. And I just about fell off my chair when they called me to tell me that we won that deal. I couldn't believe it, because this is like the University of Manitoba, and we were absolutely nobody. We didn't even have any staff. We had to go get business insurance, because that was one of the requirements, was to have business insurance, and we didn't have it yet. So that was kind of one of our earlier customers. The great thing about University of Manitoba to work with is that they were really, really generous with the feedback. And so we learned early on that if it was going to work for their student services areas, that it would probably work for a lot of other universities. And once we had that logo and we were able to draw on that experience, we started developing our product more and more and more. And we started getting customers like NAIT, I think was our second university. And then we added McMaster, George Brown. I think we're up to about 20 universities now. So we discovered early on that was going to be kind of a a really good area for us to get customers. We also started looking at, well, okay, what other government agencies are kind of like registries? So we discovered police, for example. So Regina Police was one of our first police clients. And again, we've kind of used the network effect and sort of gone to them and said, okay, well, you like our product, so who else can you introduce us to? Who else do you know? Really relying on that network effect. We did move into healthcare fairly early on. Michael Garron Hospital in Toronto has been on the books since early 2021. They don't use our software extensively. They have it kind of as a backup in case things evolve and they do have to ask people to wait outside of the building. And then we have kind of like random customers as well who use our software in ways that we didn't really intend it, like for logistics and for like dock management when drivers need to go to a dock or a loading dock to accept deliveries and they don't want to create traffic jams in the loading area. And so they'll use our software for that. So to date, since we officially launched in October 2020, so it's just been over 2 years, we've had over 17 million users that have gone through the system. So that's people that have used our system to join a line or make an appointment. We've saved 3.25 million hours of wait time. So that's time that people have been able to use, to do work or to relax in their cars or spend time with family or whatever instead of standing in a line. We're used at 555 locations, only in Canada and the US. We have obviously massive expansion plans to go into the States, and we've done fundraising of 3.5 million, which includes a seed A round, a seed B round, and then some funding from the Prairies Can Scale Up program. Yeah, our goal is basically to double revenue every year. We've hit that 3 years in a row, and so we've got a slightly more aggressive target for this year. We have a huge focus on growth and expansion, and obviously we're not doing this just the three of us anymore, and we're also not doing it off the side of our desks because in June of this year I sold the registry to somebody who was able to sort of focus on that business full time because I wanted to give my full time to WaitWell. Bridget, can I just pause? Are there any questions at this point?
There's a couple in here. Dean was just asking about the revenues there. Was that your revenues showing, I think, in the previous slide, Dean? Or go ahead and unmute. Maybe Dean's not able to.
Yeah, the revenues are on this screen. So our first year we did about 250. The next year we did about 415. Last year we closed at 890, and our projection for this year is 2.3. Our organization, we're super transparent, and I tell everybody, even when we interview new people, we always say we're super transparent about that. We live and die by what we call our big why. The company big why is the revenue, and then that scales down to the departments within the organization.
What's the business model?
Oh, that's a great question. Thanks, Dean. So it's primarily subscription. We do mainly annual subscriptions. So again, huge pivot from where we started out. Originally, it was supposed to be a simple text-based app. It was going to be a monthly fee. People were going to put their credit card in. They were going to get charged every month, like your typical sort of product-led SaaS solution. We have moved to, we've created our product, and we really target our marketing towards enterprise. So mostly universities, government agencies, and large private enterprise retail stores and hospitality, for example. So mainly we work on an annual subscription model, and we build our subscriptions basically custom. It's a little bit a la carte because we have to estimate how many users they're going to have and how many SMS will be required. And of course, the SMS is a real cost to us. We do have a little bit of other revenue from like training, onboarding, that kind of thing, but most of it comes from the subscription.
So Shannon, just as far as the you guys tier it by size of organization for pricing, how do you guys do that?
To be quite honest, Dean, that's a huge topic. We actually just brought on a product manager this week, and of course he's asking all of those questions as well. It basically comes down to users, because the real cost is going to come from the SMS. So we'll do unlimited locations, unlimited service providers, but we need to look at how many visitors they think they're going to put through the system. So we've kind of got to the point where we know that a university with 5,000 to 10,000 students using it at 3 to 5 locations is probably going to have this many visits and is going to require this many SMS. So we build a contract out with that in mind. Every time we sell into a market. Go ahead.
One last quick question here. As far as growth, how do you guys grow? Is it through an RFP or is it through referrals?
I would say 50-50. The biggest deal that we've won to date, it's not even on the slide here, but we closed a deal. We won a bid for the state of Nevada to use it at all of their DMVs and police stations throughout the state. That was an RFP, but we do also get a lot through referrals. We actually have a whole area of marketing that we call community engagement, and their job is basically just to learn as much as they can about these organizations, go to their events, sponsor their webinars, attend their webinars. So we get a lot of referrals through that. And then of course, referrals from existing customers. Yeah. So this is just kind of, I don't want to spend too much time on the slide because I know it's really heavy and dense, but this kind of just shows sort of how people enter the system. So they can either enter by scanning a QR code, sending a text, or a lot of times people will actually enter the system through the location's website. So if you're at University of Manitoba and you need to talk to a financial aid advisor, you can actually go to the financial aid page on their website, and you can either make an appointment through WaitWell, or you can just join the lineup and you can see from there how long the wait time is. So if it's an hour and a half, you can plan to just show up right in time. So people, they can do that, and it just opens up the browser on the phone. So there's no app download required. We do have a customer app and we have a staff app, which can be used in some situations, but most of the time people are just using the browser on their phone. So they make their appointment, they can have, they get customized communication. So they might get an email or a text back saying, we're expecting you at 3 o'clock. You're going to be meeting with Alex, and don't forget to bring these 3 documents. We can actually collect those documents, so we can have them upload the document or even fill out a form on their phone or on the computer. And then it'll be attached to that service ticket. They can do 2-way SMS. So if they just have a really quick question, like, hey, I lost my passport. Will you be able to use my student ID for identification? Yeah, sure. That's fine. Okay. I'll see you soon. Just kind of being able to ask those quick questions. For the service provider, there's a CRM built in, so they're able to see not only all the details of that service visit, but they can see everything else that the visitor has ever done in the past. And they can also text back and forth. They can put a note on that ticket to share with another service provider. We do have kind of a back counter workflow, which is used at pharmacies, for example, so they can actually track all the things that are happening that aren't customer facing. And then finally, we have reports and analytics built in as well, so that organizations, some of our customers, like for example, Glentel has hundreds of locations on our system, and so they want to be able to see which locations have really long wait times, which ones have longer service times. Maybe they need to open another store, maybe they need to staff that location better, and so they find those reports and analytics really useful. So all of this to say that when what I set out to create, it's going to be super simple, and our differentiation is that we're going to be made in Canada, very, very different than where we've landed. In fact, I would say it's 180 degrees, because what we thought was going to make us different was that we were simpler than the competition. In the end, what made us different was that we were better at listening to our customers, and we built a solution that is more comprehensive and more customizable than any of our competition. I saw a hand up there just a second ago.
Steve, was that you?
Yeah, it might have been me. I think it's absolute genius, what you've done. But I am worried. How do you prevent somebody else from doing the simpler version and just doing it themselves?
Do you mean like customers developing their own applications?
What's your moat? What prevents you from being, somebody entering the same market and competing?
Yeah,
Uh,
well, we do have lots of competition. So, and we weren't the first to market either. The first to market with this type of solution was probably Qless. There are probably 10 or 12 customers that are trying to do something very similar to what we're doing. We go up against them in bids all the time. I would say we win about 80% of the time. Sometimes we don't. What makes us different is actually the way that our solution was architected. So we've gone with kind of a modularized approach. So large organizations, they already have a customer workflow. They know exactly how they want their customer journey to look like. They don't want to change that customer journey to fit a software solution. They want the software solution to fit their customer journey. And so what we've run into a lot of times is a really large organization like Lentel, for example, will think that they're going to build a solution for themselves. And then they get through it and they realize it's actually really complex. And so then they start looking for something that's off the shelf. And then what they find is it's too restrictive. So the way that we built our product, and I can't take any credit for this, this is all the genius of our developer, Steve Drew. The way that we built the product, we're able to, we've got the module is modularized, and then the settings can be turned on and then customized. So we have so many of them that we're able to better match the customer workflow than anybody else. And I think we've just done this because we just listen really well to our customers. We're really, our customer care is really closely tied to our product development. They meet very, very regularly, and we just have a very, very talented, our technical co-founder that I'll introduce in just a second. He's just very, very talented and very, very fast and listens really, really well. And so we're able to actually move a lot faster than some larger organizations that are doing, like, kind of playing in the same space.
That's incredible. And it's always the advice that founders and startups are given, yet it seems hard for a lot to work out. So it's very cool. There's so many questions. There's a lot of questions. Is it Cher? Would you want to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Shannon. I love your story. Congratulations on all the success you and yourself and your team has obtained.
Thank you.
I would love to use this myself one day in the near future. And the first thing that popped into mind is just the general atmosphere and then a notion of the privacies and concerns. I'm not a technical person, but I take it like if you text your name into a number, is that phone number being captured somewhere, and how is that being addressed? And looking at the deck of all your logos, it spells to me that all the concerns are being addressed. What is the most common concerns that you hear, and how are you guys addressing it? Because I think the trust in the product is really the key for adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very curious I'm really curious as to how does that dynamic work from your experience and your perspective.
So data security is probably the number one concern. I think there's probably two concerns organizations have when they're looking at moving towards a digital customer flow solution. One is data privacy security, and then the other is just like, are our customers going to buy into this? Is this going to become a barrier to entry? We address the barrier to entry. We do work with hardware, so we can put a kiosk and then just run our software on any kind of kiosk, even just sort of an Android tablet or an iPad. And that provides access for people that don't have a mobile device. We also do make sure that our software is as accessible as it possibly can be. But in terms of data security, again, that's just baked into the product, just the way that we designed it. So we have partitioned databases, and the customer has ultimate control over what to do with the data. So they can, for example, purge all of the PI when the ticket is closed, or they can purge it at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the month, or whatever they want to do in order to comply with their data privacy policies. And then, of course, a lot of it, the risk is usually actually people, right? It's not like it's what people do with the software. And so we also make sure that organizations can have really tight control over who's accessing and what exactly they can see. So, for example, it can be locked so much in that if you're working in a bank, you can, when you click next customer, that's all you can see is that one customer that you're working with. After you close that ticket, you can't see the previous customer, the next customer, any customers that anybody else served. So it can be really, or we can have it completely opened up so that every agent can see all of the previous ticket history for every visitor that's ever been there. So really putting the control in the hands of the customers so that our software is going to match what their privacy requirements are according to their jurisdiction and their organization's policies.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. So anyways, I just kind of wanted to circle back. So, when my partner said, what's going to make you different? I said, well, we're going to be made in Canada. We're going to be super simple. Today, 3 years later, what makes us different is that we're built for scale. So, we can take an organization that has 200 or 300 or even 1,000 locations, bring them on within sort of a week, but then also allow that organization to pick out, okay, well, these 13 are rural locations and their workflow is entirely different. So they need a completely different setup so they can onboard the 993 in one way and the other 7 in a completely different way. And so that's why we're really built for scale. And then highly customizable for very complex service locations. A lot of times when we talk to a customer and they've talked to the competition, they, like when we went to Nevada, they had 20 questions that they were sure we weren't going to be able to address, and we were able to. And a lot of that has to do with how our software is architected. Just really quickly, this is where we sell into. We do see probably the most opportunity in private healthcare and public service. Healthcare is somewhere we're just moving into. I would say, share to your question about the biggest concern people have with healthcare, it's 100% privacy. And we're actually working right now on our SOC 2 and HIPAA compliance. We should have that done early in the year. And we feel like that's going to really allow us to move a lot more quickly into that market. And that's the team. So like I said, our CEO is also my husband. He was the one that wrote the original product requirements, and then Steve Drew is our other co-founder and our CTO. And I really credit all of the success that we've had to the fact that I partnered with these two, and I really brought that sort of subject matter expertise about how service really should work, what kind of challenges service providers have, what kind of complaints customers have, how they want it to look and feel. Steve Vander Meulen has years and years of experience in commercializing software in Alberta. He's worked for some of the big companies you'd know, like Intuit and Smart, for example. And Steve Drew's done the same. He's been building enterprise software for years. I think that honestly, that's been the secret to our success, is just having a founder who's invested in the growth of this company just the way we are. We did bring on our second developer, Doug Neller, just in the last couple of months. That was something that our investors kept asking us about. How are you going to de-risk this thing? How are you going to clone Steve Drew? And so we were really excited to be able to find not just one, but two really super talented, experienced full stack developers. And the rest of our team is mostly in account management and in marketing. We do sell through digital channels, and also, like I said, through community engagement. And then we really rely on getting referrals from our happy customers. We've been through some of the, as I said, we're a huge fan of the ecosystem partners within Calgary. I think we're incredibly lucky to be building this company in this city. And so we've been really lucky to be recognized and to be included in some great programs, like, for example, CDL and GrowthX. We recently won the Start Alberta 100 award. And I think that we really couldn't have picked a better place to be building this company. Really, really love this team. There's 2 people missing there. We've got 2 new hires. So we're up to 13. Awesome. Yeah. Should I pause for questions? I was just sort of going to close with some sort of.
Yeah, maybe close, Shannon, and then we'll go to the questions, because
okay,
I'm getting pretty specific, and we'll wrap up
Yeah. So I would say, like, the first thing is listen to your customers. A lot of the advice, like I said, we had a great time at, CDL and in GrowthX, but a lot of the advice we got was like, go really deep, pick a market, to satisfy that market uniquely, don't go anywhere else. And, a lot of it was sort of around, if you, the old adage about, if Ford says if he'd listened to his customers, he would have built a faster wagon or whatever. We kind of took a little bit of a different approach, where we really did listen to our customers a lot, and it allowed us to, sort of filter that advice through, is this going to be a feature that other people are going to like, or is this just something is this a customization that nobody else is going to need? We were fairly successful with that. That's why I say take advice with a grain of salt. We use kind of a very sort of scientific approach here, and this has to do with product development, but also just even like marketing when we run marketing campaigns. So we do a lot of, asking a question, do some research, make a hypothesis, test it, analyze the results, and then go from there. Capital obviously is really, really important. We kept our jobs for the first year and a half. So we were, run a bit ragged doing this off the side of our desk, but I think that's really important not to run through that money and then, taking the smart money. So like when we did take money, we were lucky to get investment from some people that we really rely to on a weekly basis for advice. Somebody that you can call and, they didn't just write a check. They actually have done this. They've built it, and they can give you great advice when you run into roadblocks. And then, I always say, stay in love, fall in love with the problem and stay in love with the problem. So I'm just in love with service optimization. I know that it's not the most exciting thing for a lot of people, but to me, when I walk into a service organization and it feels like a beehive and everyone's being directed to the right place at the right time and they've got the right things and they know what to expect, I just think that that's really awesome. And I love helping organizations to solve that problem. And then just being patient. And, because it sometimes can take a while. We had a lot of luck. Like the fact that we built this during the pandemic was incredibly fortunate. I know that it would have looked a lot different if we'd started now, for example, or 5 years before. So I think being patient is really, really important, because timing is a really key component as well. And then I just wanted to close, what's next for us is that we're moving into new markets. Right now we're kind of 50-50 Canada and the US. By the end of next year, we want to be 80-20. So all of our new growth, we're expecting to come from the US. We're also expanding our platform to include other things that customers are asking us for, like, can we take payments while people are waiting? And can you help us to schedule our staff, our service staff? We have all the analytics about when their wait times are long, when their ticket volumes are high, so we can use that analytics to help them do predictive staff scheduling. And we've got 2 open positions as well. And I just wanted to make sure that I squeeze that in there, because somebody might be looking for work, or they might know somebody. So we've got a community engagement manager coordinator position that involves some travel into the States, and a customer success person as well. And that's it.
That's awesome.
I also put my LinkedIn QR code there. I'd love to connect with anybody on the call.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. It's incredible, an incredible story. And I love that communities of focus. I love seeing that in startup to growth strategies. We have so many questions here that we can tackle, and maybe we'll have time for one breakout. So Dean was curious, and sorry, I actually lost connection there and had to come back up. So I don't know if you touched on this, but do you outsource? His question is, do you outsource your roadmap product builds?
No, in fact, the opposite of that, because we Steve Vander Meulen has done all of our product roadmap work to this point. We're really lucky that because he's done it for 20 years, he's able to kind of do it off the side of his desk as sort of another CEO role. But we just brought in our very first dedicated product manager this week.
Awesome. Ryan asked, with custom pricing, are there more factors than number of SMS you use to determine the subscription price for that customer?
Okay, well, sometimes the customer tells us how much money they have. So to be quite honest, I think it's an area it's going to be a huge focus for the product managers to standardize our pricing. It does slow sales down a lot when they're creating proposals and they have to sort of create bespoke pricing for each customer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll hit the next one and then we'll head into breakouts. Allison was asking about, how did you manage the complexities of back-end development? Did you build offshore? How did you manage keeping things simple enough, but still not off the shelf in terms of requirements and differentiation?
So our product as it is now was developed almost entirely by Steve Drew, who's our partner and CTO. He's a full stack developer and he's developed the entire product. And it's something that customers ask us a lot about. They want to know where it was developed, and it's a huge selling feature for us. It's not something that we plan to change.
Allison, do you want to unmute maybe and just make
Yeah.
you're covered?
Thanks so much, Bridget, and thank you, Shannon. This was such a great story. I loved it. My
you.
question is related to this, like, is similar to kind of like a two-sided SaaS model, but sometimes becomes like a three-sided SaaS when you've got an admin platform in the background. And so it becomes like super complex when you have a detailed CRM. And I just was wondering, like, so yeah, I hear from you that Steve's kind of managed all of it, but it can become bigger really fast, and you guys have seemed to manage that like quite, relative ease. And so I have some customers and clients that I work with that kind of get into the weeds with this, and that's where my question is. And it might be a better question for Steve, but I just wondered if you had any insight.
Yeah, Bridget, you should have Steve on here next time.
Yeah.
He's really an amazing resource for our company, and we're really lucky to have somebody that's got that depth of product management, product development experience. Yeah, I don't know where to start with that. We're really, really excited about having a product manager on. We're also about to dive into we've selected a vendor. I can't announce it just yet because we haven't signed on the dotted line yet, but we are about to embark on a really big product positioning exercise. And so a lot of what we kind of know anecdotally, we're going to be able to document, and we're hoping is going to really give us a much stronger foundation for moving forward and expanding our product.
Okay, well, we want to have a bit of time for everybody to connect, discuss in smaller rooms so everybody has a chance to share. So I'm going to create a breakout room, and we'll probably just have time to come back for community announcements. And if there's any outstanding questions, we could probably touch on them then too. So here we go. They're larger groups, but we'll make this one about a 6 minutes, bit longer than usual too. So hopefully everyone has time to chat. Welcome back, everybody. I think that should be everyone coming back in. So huge thank you, Shannon, for sharing with us today, and like all the feedback I'm getting on the side and in my breakout room of two was just so positive and excited for you and WaitWell. So we'll all be watching, and I'm sure connecting with you outside of this. Well, hopefully not all of us, or you won't have time to build your company.
Thanks very much, Bridget. I appreciate it.
We really appreciate you sharing the story. So important in sharing those lessons learned with broader community or aspiring founders. So we'll maybe turn it over here to community announcements in the next couple of minutes. I'll just start by saying that the last 2 Lunch Without Lunches of the year, so December 13th, we are in person at C-Space. So there's a group there that are going to be hosting us in this tree fort space, they call it, I think, or treehouse space in C-Space. And so watch emails and our Luma registration page for the details on how to get up there. It's going to be nice to be just in person. I don't think we'll have a virtual component just because of lack of access to it there. And then the last Lunch Without Lunch of the year, I see Anna here from Momentum. I worked at Momentum a few years back, and the culture there is amazing. And there's this focus around food, which of course is so important in building culture. And we'd have potlucks all the time. And I thought, you know what? Let's turn this rainforest Lunch Without Lunch into Lunch with Lunch. We might not have a sponsor, but if everybody can bring a snack, bring a dish, your favorite, maybe holiday dish, cookies, whatever it might be, maybe Amber and I will try to bring something a bit more substantial so the rest can kind of be side pieces, but that will be in the kitchen at Platform Calgary. So on the 2nd floor of Platform, they have the big open kitchen space. We have that booked for an hour of connection, sharing food, and swapping stories and all that good stuff. So next week, C-Space, the following week, Platform Potluck. We'll see you there, all in person. Anyone else want to share some announcements?
I've got one for Civic Tech this next Tuesday. We're having a session on quantum computing technology. Got a local Calgary startup that's doing quantum computer education in the corporate sector. So learning not the physics side of quantum computing, but the actual application sides of quantum computing. One example I've been throwing out is over the pandemic, LA's port started using quantum computing for looking at the logistics of where to move their shipping containers and managing inventory. And they increased their throughput capacity by 60% without adding any more physical infrastructure. So there's a lot of power within it that is emerging. And we're at the point now that traditional computing was at back in the 60s with quantum computing, just to give you kind of a scale of how that can expand.
So cool, quantum
And
computing.
that's Tuesday at 7 p.m. We're doing that one virtually on Zoom there.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Russ. It's the next big thing, the next AI. A lot of quantum talk around Calgary.
And
Anyone?
then December 14th is the Thriving Minds event for how to build a strong entrepreneurial brain. It's a third in the succession, and this one's going to be all online. So you should be able to jump on the 14th, and I'll paste the Eventbrite link here on chat.
Thanks, Pete. Last call. All righty. Well, a big thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Shannon and WaitWell, and everybody for taking time out of your day. We'll see you at C Space next week. Have a good one, everyone.